So the last talk of the day is from Michał Stęchły. I'm sorry for the pronunciation, but so he's a scientific software engineer in quantum computing at Zapata Computing. He's going to talk about job opportunities in quantum computing without a PhD. I hope that you will enjoy the talk, and Michał, you can start when you're ready.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you see my screen? Classic question.
Yeah, it's perfect. We can see it.
Okay, can you see that I'm changing slides right now?
Yes.
Awesome, great, then it works. If something doesn't work, please let me know. So, hello everyone, my name is Michał Stęchły, and I work as a quantum software engineer at Zapata Computing. And today I wanted to tell you a little bit about, well, job opportunities in quantum computing without a PhD. And after I actually proposed the name of the talk, I realized two problems with this. So first is that the goal of this presentation is to show you different paths to get a job in quantum computing. And the goal of this presentation is absolutely not to tell you that you shouldn't do PhD. Like, doing PhD is, totally viable career path. No doubts regarding that. I'm just trying to show you some alternative routes. So to make this clear. And the other thing that I also realized is that I think actually for the people that are doing PhD or have PhD, this talk will still be pretty valuable. So yeah, with these caveats, let me start. And thank you very much. I forgot to thank you for actually inviting me. I really appreciate it. So
no problem.
With these caveats, I will start. So let me start with my personal story. And I will spend a little bit of time here because, well, I think it's a good example of how you can do that. And also it will give you some context about what are my interests and what are my specialties, because I'm coming from the very specific background and not everything might apply if you have very, very different background, right? So, keep that in mind while listening to me. So I come from Poland, and I did my bachelor in physics, and I also did bachelor and master in automation control and robotics. And during my studies and after, I've been working as a software engineer for about 2.5 years. And I always had a lot of interest in optimization and machine learning, but not that much interest in quantum computing. I did one university course in quantum computing. It was like 1 semester long, and I took it mostly because it just fitted my schedule best out of all the other classes that I could take. And I actually really liked it. And then after that, I went for 5 days summer school in Innsbruck. And that was, I think, in 2015. And since then, I have not touched much of quantum computing until late 2017, where I actually heard that, well, quantum computing seems to be the industry that's actually just started. I've heard some podcasts. I started looking at some presentations about quantum computing, and in late 2017, I started to think that, well, this might be a good career choice for me, and this is the career path that I would like to follow. So in March 2018, I started working on a project that was about implementing using QAOA to solve traveling salesman problem. And I did it with a collaboration with a Polish startup, BOR. In July 2018, I went for Creative Destruction Lab workshops in Toronto as part of BOR. And when I got back from Toronto, I quit my job, and in September I started work full-time at BOR. unfortunately, startups not always last very long, and unfortunately, Borg closed around April 2019. So I started to look for a job again, and went in the interview process with Zapata and got the job there. And since July 2019, I'm working at Zapata. All of that was done in Poland. And in October 2019, I moved to Toronto, and I work in Toronto office of Zapata. I actually written kind of the story, much more details on my blog. So I will post slides to this presentation in the Slack channel after the talk, so you can find the link and more details there. Okay. As I said, right now I work as a quantum software engineer. I'm mostly involved in product development, like the development of the scientific software libraries, a little bit in the research and customer projects. My main interests are variational algorithms and optimization. In my spare time, I try to be active in the community. So I'm running a mentorship program at Quantum Open Source Foundation, and I also have blog and podcast where I talk about quantum computing in general. Okay. So let's talk about actual types of jobs in quantum computing. I created this very, very crude classification here. So I would say that the first type of jobs that I think people usually they usually come to mind first are all research-related jobs. So this is usually some scientists / research, like the researcher. This is what you see in the job title. Alternatively, maybe application scientist, which is slightly different. So, the first one obviously focuses more on the research itself, while the second one often is about applying algorithms that we know to specific problems, for example, for customer projects. So a customer comes with certain problem, he has certain data, he has some very specific requirements, and wants to see how we can use quantum computing to solve this problem. And these two jobs actually might require very deep expertise in quantum computing, in the algorithms and so on. And they usually, I think, in the job posting, you have PhD as kind of, if not required, then preferred kind of qualification. However, there are many different jobs. So you can work in a quantum computing company as a software engineer. And by software engineer, I mean like regular software engineer. So a person that deals with tools, with infrastructure, and not really that much with science. Then quantum software engineer is something that I do, where actually I spend much more time on the between science and software. So I work closer to scientists. I create tools for them to use that often I implement some algorithms or make integrations with various frameworks, simulators, or whatsoever. And then there are all kind of hardware engineer jobs that unfortunately I'm not very familiar with. So Zapata is a quantum software startup. So we don't build our own hardware, but in other companies that actually build hardware, you have plenty of jobs like hardware engineer, control engineer, like electrical engineer, and things like this. I cannot speak too much about this. But for these engineering jobs, you also usually need, a certain set of skills, and you don't necessarily need to be an expert in quantum computing or quantum algorithms specifically in order to be great at this job. Then we also have a lot of other areas, so business or operations, where also this PhD is not necessarily required. So why do companies actually ask for PhD in their job postings? And the answer is simple. The answer is signaling. So signaling is basically about how you can signal to potential employer, you as candidate, that you have skills necessary for the job. And there are many ways to do that. And I would say that formal education is one of the most commonly accepted, right? Because if you have a PhD in quantum computing, that probably means that you spend a lot of time on doing research and on learning about this area, right? However, there are a lot of different skills, a lot of different traits that you might want to signal, and a lot of different ways to do that. So I will get to that now. Okay, so what traits do you want to signal? First, I would say this cliche, ability to conduct independent research. So basically, if you ask anyone, what skills like person with a PhD has, this is exactly that. And this is definitely an important skill for researcher type, like research-oriented roles, but not necessarily for engineering-oriented roles, right? Another thing is domain expertise. Well, you definitely are a valued addition to the team if you have expertise in specific domain. However, it sometimes it's important that the domain is quantum computing, but sometimes actually not, because if you have a quantum computing company and they're working on a customer project and the project is done in collaboration with, let's say, a chemistry company, right? Or pharmaceutical company, then actually maybe the domain knowledge that the company needs is not in quantum computing, because they probably have a lot of people that know that already, but maybe it's in actually chemistry or biology or like molecular biology, or whatever is needed for the project. Other things that companies are often looking for are software skills. And by software skills, I don't mean only ability to write code, because this is just actually one part. Often people, definitely not always, but often people in academia don't get the skill of working on a software product. They often write one-off scripts that just need to generate results for the paper they're working on, and then they move to the next one and the next one and the next one, script like this. However, if you have a company, you want to have code base that's reusable, that's properly tested, and so on and so on. So it's really valuable to be able to write code in this manner. Another thing is communication skills and ability to work in a team. I think this is especially important in quantum computing for the following reasons. So first, there is a lot of hype, and quantum computing is, given that it's a relatively new field, there is a lot of confusion about what certain things mean and what quantum computers can and can't do. Therefore, being very good communicator really helps, both in talking, in talking basically with everyone, be it general public, customers, or engineers, or like other people on your team. So this is definitely something that people pay attention to. But also, given that the field is so young and so interdisciplinary, you really, as a single person, single researcher working on this, you can only get that far. You need to work in a team in order to actually achieve great results, because there's just like, you know, too many things to be aware of. Like the quantum computers that we have today are on such an early stage that you just need to be aware of, even working on algorithms that are kind of like might be abstract. You need to keep in mind the limitations of the hardware and have knowledge about it if you want to run them like anytime in the next couple of years, right? So so these are things like, let's say like you know, soft skills that are really important. And another thing is initiative. I mean, I guess this is like pretty general. Usually you want to hire people that have initiative and that, you know, can just be independent and like work independently and like do their job properly. And the last thing that companies are looking for is culture fit. So whether you know, basically fit this company or not, whether you will be able to you know, talk with people and work with them smoothly, or there will be always some friction. And I wanted to point out here that I've seen in many cases that there was a great candidate for a job that had a lot, like all the technical skills that they needed for this job. However, they wouldn't fit the company well, and they would be frustrated. The people they would be working with, their teammates would be frustrated. So they didn't get the job because of the lack of the culture fit. Of all the things I talked about, this is actually something that you can do kind of list about, because you need to know you need to know what the company looks like and how it feels to work there in order to say whether someone has a good culture fit or not. So I wouldn't worry about this too much. So now that one moment. So now that we listed some traits that some skills that companies are looking for, let's think how to actually signal that you have these skills or not. So as I said, like classical way of signaling at least part of these is like formal education, so master or PhD, because what this shows, it definitely shows that you can conduct independent research, that you have expertise in whatever your PhD was about. In most cases, it probably means that you also can write code, at least to some extent. And if you worked in the collaboration, then definitely it shows some of your ability to work as a team. And since you've written a couple of papers, then you also probably have some communication skills, right? And I can go and read your papers and see how well you communicate in writing, at least. But let's say you don't have a PhD, and for whatever the reasons, you don't want to actually go that path. So what are other ways to signal these traits? One is having publications, which might be tricky, but if you're still at the university, you can still publish with your group. And this is also a plus. You can also try doing that as independent researcher, or try to join some existing research groups and just like do a project with them. All kind of projects. Here I mean mostly software projects. So like solid GitHub presence is always a plus, because it shows that what you are talking about. It shows domain expertise. It shows that you can actually write a code that's like usable. It shows that if it's well described, the documentation is there. It shows that you can convey your thinking. And it also shows initiative, because you did something extra that you didn't have to. Similarly, having a blog is also a nice thing. From my experience, like writing a blog helps a lot in understanding how certain algorithms or technical things work. Other conference presence, yeah, like it's similar as let's say like publications. I wanted to actually stretch the importance of networks and personal recommendations. So if you know people in the field and these people can recommend you, then it really means a lot. So at Zapata, we usually get, for any given job position, we get, let's say, like 30 to 300 CVs. So it's hard to go through all 300 CVs in a very methodical way. So we usually spend 30 seconds to a couple of minutes per CV to evaluate whether this person would be good at the job or not. But if someone can recommend you, and if someone can someone like that we know, right, says, oh, I worked with this guy, like he's great, then we know that, like, okay, this is a person that's definitely we need to look in more closely. And so the power of personal recommendations is really hard to underappreciate. But at the same time, I feel like people often focus a lot on the technical skills, but then they don't really spend that much time actually getting to know people in the field better. It also helps you a lot to know people in the field, because they can tell you actually what the job is like, and they can they can maybe be your mentors and help you actually learn all the things that you need to learn. So this is really something that's important. And last but not least, well, internships are also kind of, I would say, kind of standard way, but a good way to show off and signal your strengths. What are some places where you can get relevant experience? Well, Unitary Fund is a microgrant program. That's a great place to start a project and get some recognition. We're running a mentorship program at Quantum Open Source Foundation. You can contribute to open source projects, and this really works. People really appreciate that. Being involved in local communities, so organizing some local startups, or helping people organize local group for self-help group for learning quantum computing, and also doing some independent projects like reproducing research papers or something else. Okay, so last but not least, a couple of examples of people that I know about and that actually did a great job, got a job in quantum computing, even though they didn't have this formal education. So Entfali Bashige, he is right now a quantum software engineer at Zapata, and he doesn't have formal higher education, but he has been working as a software engineer for 10 years in enterprise software, web development, and these kind of things. Then he realized that he would like to do something closer to science. And he remembered that years ago, he heard about quantum computing, and he started to learn. And he self-taught by reading Mike and Ike, reading papers, self-taught a lot about quantum computing. He had a great affinity for research, and basically he got a job at Zapata Computing as software engineer first. So he started as software engineer, and the stuff that he was working on had little to do with science, actually. But since he was already at the company, he was talking with people, he was pursuing his own kind of side projects in his spare time. And recently he transitioned to a different team where he is actually doing a lot more of research. Vitold, he used to be my CEO at Board Technology, so the startup I've been working prior to joining Zapata. He has a degree in law, kind of always been interested in technology, but doesn't have any formal education here. He was a CEO of a quantum startup, and he has very strong, this entrepreneurial drive, and he has very, very deep market knowledge. So he did a lot of research. He talked with plenty of people to learn about how this technology works, what are the limitations, and so on. So when he applied for the position here, like Director of European Business Development, one of the requirements on the offer was actually PhD, because at Zapata, like, we thought that we need someone with deep technical expertise. But when Witold came to the interview, it turned out that, like, even without a PhD, he has this expertise because he's been working in this field, he's been talking with people, and he's really, really good understanding. And the last example is my teammate, Alex Juda. So Alex worked as a software engineer and at first IoT startup, then at machine learning startup. He was always like close to research, but also doing a lot of mobile development, as well as like some DevOps stuff. He is bachelor in automation, control, and robotics, and he joined Zapata a couple of months ago, and he has absolutely no background in quantum computing. So the thing was that we were looking for someone for our team to help us develop scientific software, and we already had plenty of people with good background in quantum computing, but we needed someone with really solid, background in software engineering to help us fill some gaps, competence gaps that we had in our team. And we knew he's smart, we knew he is motivated and he can learn, and he is learning a lot about quantum computing since then. But actually, that wasn't what got him the job. Conclusions from the stories are like, do your market research, see what companies are looking for, and play your strengths. If you have experience in software engineering, like, don't apply. I mean, you can try, sure, but it makes more sense for you to apply for software-oriented positions, and then perhaps, oh, okay. I think I had some network issues. Can you hear me?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Sorry. So if you have good software background, maybe it's better to just try to find work as a software engineer, then transition maybe to like more research project like Enfali did, and give what you have best to offer to your employer. Another thing, it's a long process. It takes time. Like for me, since I actually started being interested in quantum computing to actually getting a job, it was at least a year of just me doing projects. I think even longer for Enfali. So take your time and don't expect the results to come overnight. And the last thing, well, it actually requires a lot of effort. So PhD also requires a lot of effort, but it's more structurized, like what to expect, people know to expect from you. If you want to signal your different skills in a different way, you actually need to do your homework. You need to do some extra projects in your free time, go to the conference, pay for that yourself, because like no one else will, because why? And there's like pursue your kind of goal. But the thing is that this job is like extremely rewarding and extremely interesting, and the field is really exciting to be here. So it's, for me, it's definitely worth the pursuit and worth the effort. But you have to keep in mind it's not that it will happen very quickly. Okay, and more resources. So I written a little bit about this on my blog, Musty Thoughts. I've described exactly how the job of quantum software engineers looks like in my podcast. There is I also talked a little bit about this in another talk, link here. There is a great talk by Araceli Venegas Gomez from Cureka that I also recommend watching. And in 80,000 hours is like, this is nothing to do with quantum, but it's like the best career advice source of information I've seen. I'm reading this website since basically they started in 2013, I guess. And it's really, really eye-opening and really data-driven website with a lot of information about how to do, how to develop your career. And also it's always worth to do like some standard career-related searches, like how to write CV, how to prepare for the interview, and all this kind of stuff. You know, a lot of that is actually very generic, but I personally found it very useful to see how different people think about this kind of topics and how to approach certain elements of the interviewing process. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I guess I will start answering the questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michael. It was very, very nice of you. Very nice talk. I really appreciate it. It's funny to say like tomorrow, Araceli Venegas Gomez is giving a talk as well. So I mean, you can maybe ask a question to her as well. But in the first time, there are some questions that people is asked for you. So the first one is like, was it hard to fit yourself in a field mostly surrounded by scientific with a PhD background?
Not at all. And the reason for that is because people recognize that, like I, coming from more software background, I have skills that they don't have. And I'm very helpful for them. And I'm making their life easier. So everyone's super helpful, like super friendly and you know, super helpful because I'm learning something from them, they are learning something from me, and it just works great. Also, the field in general is like very collaborative at this point, and this also kind of, you know, everyone kind of tries to help each other. So yeah, that wasn't ever an issue.
Okay. So the second question, so it's like, thanks for your talk, Michael. So I have an undergraduate background in mathematics and physics rather than software or engineering. What might be some good option for me to explore in quantum computing besides doing a PhD?
So, well, there are like a lot of things I haven't said, but like one thing is that, you know, I would really just like do the research and see what companies are looking for. So maybe just like honing software skills a little bit and then trying to apply for a position which, you know, is not like that heavily software oriented, but maybe more like maybe cryptographic type of things might be it. You might try to apply for some, if you have some specific domain knowledge, like, I don't know, like combinatorial optimization, right? Then perhaps you can apply for some applied scientist role or this kind of things with the focus on combinatorial optimization. So try to look, you know, what are your strengths and are there any roles that fit it? And if you see that you are actually lacking some skills from the list that people are saying, just like try to work on that skills, get that, and try again.
Fair enough. So maybe we're running a bit late, but maybe we can ask like a last question, which is about how do you suggest I improve my software skills as a physics undergraduate?
Okay, I will post some materials on Slack, so you can check out that. But I would say try to work on some software projects, best open source software projects. Reach out to the maintainers of the project. Ask how can I help? What are the issues I can start working on, and just do that. Also, getting a gig in software engineering, half-time, like, you know, half-time job or like a small project for someone is also a good way to get that experience. I will be on Slack around, so feel free to ping me questions.
Yeah, we will move. Sorry, we will move the next question to the Slack channels, and yeah, Michael will be free to answer. I would like to thank you as well, because you thanked us at the beginning to invite you, but I would like to thank you because you accepted the invitation. It was very nice of you. No, it's like, it's true. I mean, it's very nice. I would like to thank all of the speakers for today.